So this week's talk is on skin. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm really not an expert on skin at all, but it's a really fun talk because I don't think we give it too much importance a lot of times. Your skin is actually one of the most important organs that you have. We all know it's the biggest organ, right? Mm-hmm. You get about 6 pounds of skin on you, right? So what's the purpose of skin? What does it do for us, guys? It's got 5 main purposes.
Protection.
Yeah, what's it protecting us from?
Toxins.
Protection. I mean, guys, think about it this way. It's your first line of defense from the outside to the inside. You ever think about it like that? It's like the only thing protecting us from the outside world. You know how much stuff is in the air right now? And your skin is what's protecting you from all of this stuff. So protection is the most important job of the skin. What else does it do? That's it.
That's it.
Better look good.
1 out of 5.
Shiny.
Filters.
Filters. How about this? It's there for right? You're feeling the outside world with your skin. That's how we come in contact with everything. Okay, so your skin has all these little nerves, which we'll talk about. Hey, how beautiful is that, guys? Huh?
That was
I was going to compliment you.
Right? That's not trace. I did that myself.
A regular old Michelangelo.
Okay, yeah, pretty nice. So you have all these nerves, which I didn't draw in there, but you have all these nerves coming in, and your skin acts like a sensor to all the energetic input coming into you, and it relays all that information into the center of you, which we'll talk about a little further as well. What else does it do? I'll tell you.
Regulation.
Thermoregulation, what does that mean?
Temperature.
Yeah, it means you sweat pretty much, right? It keeps our temperature regulated, and we do that through sweating. So we have sweat glands in our skin that seep out as well. What else does skin? I wrote this down for
Absorption.
Oh, duh. What's the most important vitamin that we have in our body?
D.
How is vitamin D made? Yeah, so what you have is in your skin, you have this thing called cholesterol. Real big bad cholesterol everyone's worried about. This cholesterol seeps up into our skin, and sunlight comes in and transforms that cholesterol into vitamin D. Okay? So, we need sunlight in order to make vitamin D. What does vitamin D do for us? Anyone know? Yeah, it's one of the most powerful antioxidants there is. So getting rid of tons of free radicals, and it also helps us absorb calcium and put it into our bones. So what happens if you don't get enough vitamin D?
You have high cholesterol.
You get high cholesterol. Why would you have high cholesterol? Because it's not transformed. Makes sense? There's a lot of people with very low vitamin D levels. By the way, about 40% of all Americans have a low vitamin D. And what you'll see is low vitamin D levels on blood tests, and what's their LDL or bad cholesterol numbers? And they just need sunlight, and it does this. It balances out completely. Okay? So there's that. Vitamin D without it, you also, did you guys know it's linked to pretty much every form of cancer? Why would that be?
Immune system.
Yeah, so vitamin D is important for your immune system. It's also important, remember, it's an antioxidant. So it gets rid of free radicals. Free radicals come in and transform and mutate cells. So you need this vitamin D, okay? So you need healthy skin, and we need sunshine on our skin. What are we told to avoid at all costs for our skin?
UV rays.
Guess what the best protection for your skin is? Sun. Talk's over, done, boom. And the fifth one, which is not talked about in any book at all, is it's a waste system. Your lymphatic system will get stuff out through your skin. Does that make sense? So think about your lymphatic system. And if you look up research on this, they'll be the first to tell you guys, again, we've done talks on the lymphatic system. It's your waste system. It's getting garbage out of you. There's very little to no research done on this system. But we do know that your skin is one of the easiest ways to get gunk out of us. Through our sebaceous glands, which is all the fat and oils and things like that, triglycerides coming out of us, as well as sweat, right? I don't know if anyone has had this, you guys don't have to admit to it, but a lot of times someone gets an adjustment and they'll break out in hives or in rashes. Why does that happen? Your body will literally take some waste in you, some viruses, some bacteria, and dump it out through your skin, going outward as well. So it's really, really important.
My hands were peeling after
Yeah, right?
after my adjustments.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that too in this lecture and how that happens. Pretty cool. So Cecilia was saying her hands were peeling. Her skin was actually flaking off, almost like she was getting brand new skin underneath it.
My hands and my feet. It was like intense right after I started getting adjustments. It was like amazing.
Pretty crazy, huh? So, here's a cool little question too. Where does our skin come from? So, embryonically, meaning when you're developing as an embryo, you have 3 layers that form. So you have what's called the endoderm, then the mesoderm, and the ectoderm. And what these do is they develop into further structures later on. So what does endo mean? Anyone know?
Outside.
Inside.
Oh,
So endo, what does derm mean?
Skin.
Right? So the inner skin is what develops inside of you. It actually all becomes your digestive tract and all your digestive organs. So think about the center of you and how different your digestive system is. All that tissue is called endoderm. Mesoderm, anyone know what meso means? Middle. This becomes your this becomes your bones, your muscles, and your other organs in the middle of you. And then you have ectoderm. What does ecto mean? Outside. What do you think your ectoderm turns into?
Skin.
And one other thing. Skin? This is what's so crazy about your skin. It's literally an extension of your nervous system. Your skin and your nervous system are actually the same exact tissue. I want you to think about it from a cell perspective. If you have this cell and you have the nucleus inside, right? Let's just say the nucleus is kind of like our central nervous system. What's the skin in the cell? What part of the cell is the skin?
The outer layers.
The outer layer. It's called your cell membrane. Make sense? It's the most important part of the cell. What's the purpose of the membrane of a cell? Anyone know?
The brain.
Yeah, it's really kind of the brain of the cell. Because what this is doing is it has a whole bunch of receptors. What are these receptors doing? They're feeling the outside world. And whatever information comes in, whether it's energetic messages or chemical messages, they come in, and because of that, they send a message to the DNA and tell the DNA what genes to express and what proteins to make, what hormones to make. Does that make sense? So how intimate is the relationship between the membrane and the center and your genes and your genetics? Now think about this from a bigger scale. That's what your skin does for your body. Your skin right now, as you're sitting here, is taking in a whole bunch of information, and it's relaying it to your central nervous system. And your central nervous system is then making certain hormones, certain proteins, all based on the information your skin is having come inside of it. How important is your skin? Extremely, extremely important. It's just like nerves. In fact, there was this one gentleman that I learned from, probably the craziest guy I've ever met in my life. And I like crazy people. There's like a crazy guy, I'm like, wow, that guy knows something. He was this massively tall, looked like an ogre type of guy, and turns out he was kind of like an autistic savant. He was hit by a car when he was like 3 or 4 years old. And I've talked about this guy before, and he came in and pretty much everyone thought he was dumb his whole life, and he was actually a genius. And he ended up discovering this way of increasing his IQ and doing all this crazy stuff. But in any case, he ended up becoming a really famous, really well-known chiropractor, and he got paid by the Belize government to actually study the Mayans and the ancient Mayans and how their healing worked, and what system they believed in. So he ended up going to Belize and doing all this research with the Mayans that lived there, and the most important thing that these Mayans did was they worked on the skin. Because what they call the skin, if you have a cut or a laceration in your skin, they say it's where the wind enters your body. And it was really important because your skin, again, imagine here having a cell and you puncture this. How bad is that for the cell? What can get inside?
Everything.
Absolutely everything. The outer world can get inside the inner world. That's not good. You don't want that to happen. Your inner world is very selective as what comes inside of it. Make sense? So, there is a technique, and what does your body do when you have a cut, by the way? Scabs or scars over you. Anyone have this experience? You have one cut and it heals up perfectly, you didn't even know you had it? And you have another cut and there's like a huge kind of a bunch of scar tissue over it? Okay. So in the ancient Mayan world, they would say, wow, it's because that didn't heal up correctly. And there was wind that entered the body. And because that happened, your body puts a tremendous amount of energy there to always protect you. And the way the guy described this was kind of like, it's called the last soldier. So anyone know, when did World War II end? What year? 1945. Anyone know when the last Japanese soldier surrendered?
A lot later.
1974. There was a man, I forgot his name, Hiro Inodo, I think his name was. He was on an island. He was on an island in the Philippines. Yeah. And his group was there fighting guerrilla warfare. And his lieutenant left him and said, hey, I'll be back for you. Never went back. And in Japanese culture, guess what? You never surrender. So what ended up happening was, he had a couple interactions throughout his time, but he was still on guard and still fighting for the Japanese army. And he met another Japanese person that came in and told him, hey, the war's over. You don't need to fight anymore. And he wouldn't surrender. He said, no, I'm still fighting for my country. It took Japan contacting his old leader and coming and giving the commands to him to say, hey, we've surrendered, for him to believe that and stop fighting the war.
Wow.
Okay? So why this is important is what this guy is saying, and what the Mayans believe is this same principle. If you have a surgery, for example, and he did a lot, for example, women with cesarean sections. If you cut that open, okay, and your body is not ready for it, it's a shock to your system. So what your body does is it only creates so much energy throughout the day. And it puts all of this energy into that cut. And it's protecting it, almost like that last soldier. And everyone else is saying, like, hey, you don't need to be there anymore. You can let go. You don't need to worry about this anymore. But no matter what, it's the energy is staying there saying, no, I need to protect this area. And because of that, you'll get a whole bunch of gnarled scar tissue, things like that. And there's a technique you do to test it, and it's actually pretty cool. Does anyone want to volunteer real quick? Anyone have like an old surgery or something? Come on, check. Let's see if it works. I hope it works. I don't look like a big idiot up here. So where did you have a cut?
Sorry about
Okay, yeah, see that scar right there? And there's different ways, like you can feel it and it'll feel, when you feel like a window or something and you'll come over like a little thing that was wet and sticky? That's one way. You can do it over your skin, you'll find these really sticky points. But another way is you can muscle test it. So Shay, you're gonna face everybody, put your arm out, hold as hard as you can, pretty hard. Now lift your ankle up. You're just gonna put a little vibration into the scar. Just disturb it, hold, and it just shakes everything down. Everything will just, so it's one way you can test for it, and it's a really easy way to clear it out. But what that's saying is that area is disturbed right now. Your body's normally strong, there's a lot of power going to it. You put a little disruption, you can sit down if you want. You put a little disruption into it, and the whole body starts to freak out. So all the power is diverted, all the energy goes there. You can put, it just goes down like that. So she has a lot of energy going towards that scar right now. And it's a really, really easy technique to clear it. And once you do, I've seen scars that actually disappear over time. I've had people who I had one woman had a scar all the way across their stomach. Half of it you could barely see, the other half was huge. You could see it so easily. And you just do that work over, and guess what side reacted? This side over here. I had another woman who had something like 20-some surgeries. They all showed up except for one. And she said, wow, it's so weird. For that surgery, I prayed with my body, and I told my body beforehand, hey, this is what's going to happen. We're going to go through this surgery. And that was the only scar. You could barely see it, and it didn't show up at all. So there's a really big spiritual component to your skin that we never talk about. Again, you're not going to see studies on this, but you get some pretty miraculous results when you start to clear that out. One thing, for example, if you have a C-section, it's really common to have really bad low back pain. I don't know if you guys know that. So one thing you can do is actually go there and clear that out, and back pain goes away pretty quickly. People will actually, when it happened to me, it was like all color got way brighter all of a sudden when it happened. It's pretty magical. It's pretty cool stuff. But essentially the principle is it opens up your energy field. So a lot of, especially if you've had a lot of cuts throughout your life, vaccine punctures, you name it, all these things will actually go in and disturb it. Yeah.
So just tap it like that for 30 seconds, 3-4 times a day?
That's to find it.
Okay.
To clear it out, it's like a breathing and a stretching of the skin. So it's kind of like you're putting an input into the nervous system and breathing out the energy into it. Okay? Which I can show you how to do. It's super easy to do.
Excellent.
Okay? So, let's go over the skin. This is what the skin looks like. We got different layers to the skin. So let's go over the 3 main layers of the skin. Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. What's this called? Anyone know?
Layer 1.
Layer 1. That's good. Layer 1, aka epidermis. What does epi mean?
Outside.
Above. So epidermis is right here. So if this is the epidermis, what do you think this is called? That's called the dermis. Dermis. What is this called? The lower level.
3.
Layer 3, hypodermis. Or subcutaneous, you may have heard of as well. Right? So the 3 layers of this: epidermis, dermis, hypodermis. See this layer right here? This is what separates the epidermis from the dermis. See these cells? Anyone know the name of these cells?
Epithelial cells.
Close. They're called basal cells. Who here has heard of a basal cell carcinoma? That's probably heard of them. So the basal cells are here. These are these little cells, and what do? They separate, and what they do are these are the ones that go into what's called mitosis. What is mitosis?
Chain.
So mitosis is when a cell replicates. So I want you to think about it this way. These cells are all replicating themselves constantly, and they're pushing all the new cells upward. And these cells, these orange cells, are now called squamous cells. Who here has heard of a squamous cell? Squamous cell carcinoma, right? So here's the deal. These reproduce, the basal cells reproduce, and they push all the new cells upward. And as they go upward, these cells, see this red right here? What is these red? What do you think? Arteries, giving blood flow and nutrients, and the nerves as well come through and give it life. You notice how the arteries stop in the dermis. How do they get nutrients all the way up here? So it's called diffusion. It leaks out blood, and hopefully the blood makes its way up there, but do you think it makes its way all the way up there? So as you get higher on that level, what happens to the cells?
They die.
They begin to die. And then the outer layer of cell is all dead squamous cells. Make sense? So that's why when you do this, you see all that skin flaking off. That's what's going on, okay? You have more and more dead cells.
Especially after a fast.
Yeah, especially after a fast, right?
Thing to brush your skin.
Well, and think about it this way. What you're doing when you get an adjustment, for example, when you first get adjusted, you get life back to like your hands. And you're getting a lot more blood flow. We'll talk about blood flow in a little bit. But blood flow is essential for the health of your skin. It's very, very important. Okay, one of the most important things, and nerve flow, because they're the ones keeping all of these cells healthy and alive. Follow me so far? So when you get an adjustment and you start to increase the blood flow and the nervous system to this area, that's going to cause these cells to start reproducing well. Okay? And once they start reproducing well, you'll start to get all this old slush coming off of you and getting healthier cells underneath. Okay? So, types of cells: epidermis, dermis, hypodermis. We have these cells called basal cells, and then these orange ones are called squamous cells. What do you think these little green guys are called? What's another skin cell that you know of? Nothing, huh? Empty. Somebody knows in this room. Somebody's lying here.
I'll know it as soon as you say it. See? I knew that.
Melanocyte. What does a melanocyte do?
Produces
Everyone just mumbling like, oh, melanin. it produces this stuff, this pigment called melanin. Right? What does melanin do?
Skin color.
Color your skin.
Yeah, and why do we have this? What does it really do?
Protects the sun.
Protecting us from the sun. How does it work? Sunlight hits it, and then this starts to produce these little things, these little green sacs, and they go in all the squamous cells. So you get little green sacs in all these little squamous cells that produce pigment. Make sense? They distribute it. Now, you notice how they're separated. They're not all congested together, and we'll talk about that. So this is how it works. Sunlight hits that. It says, wow, we need to start protecting it. It produces more melanin. That melanin goes to the surface and starts to darken our skin. Okay? I have darker skin. Do I have more or less of these?
More.
I have more of those. Do I need more or less sunlight?
Less.
More.
I need more, right? Because what is sunlight doing for me?
Giving you
It's
vitamin
giving
D.
you vitamin D.
How is it doing that again?
Right, because you absorb it through your skin.
Sunlight is coming in. It's coming in through this layer into my cholesterol cells.
Do they have? Is there any correlation between people of color and lack of vitamin D?
I'm sure in the United States for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely harder to get vitamin D. So here's the deal. If you have darker skin, you have to be in the sun 30 minutes to 3 hours longer than somebody with pale skin.
Wow.
So think about that. Think about like my skin color. How often should I be in the sun?
30 minutes at least.
Now here's the cool thing. If you have like a medium skin color, like a normal, like a whitish skin color, like a little lighter than mine, if you're in Norway, Oslo at 12 o'clock in the day, that is the best time to get sunlight. You only need 30 minutes, and it gives you 10 to 20,000 international units of vitamin D,
Wow.
which you only need about 600 a day. So that's the beautiful part. So
Let's go to
like,
Norway.
yeah.
600 is how many minutes in the sun?
It would be like only literally probably 10 minutes, 12 minutes in the sun, right? Now if you have darker skin, the longer you have to go in the sun, right? And here's the reason why, right? The more I have this going on, the darker my shade of skin, that sunlight has to penetrate through more of that to get to my cholesterol to make vitamin D.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
People who have trouble sleeping, they always prescribe
Vitamin D?
What? No.
Melatonin.
Melatonin.
That's different. That's melatonin, not melanin.
Okay.
Melatonin is made in the brain. This is melanin.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, we good so far. What else do we have here? So we got these guys called melanocytes. We have the epidermis. We have squamous cells. We have basal cells. What's this thing? Yeah, this is a follicle. This is a piece of hair. What's this called? Anyone know?
Sebaceous.
Yeah, who said that? Whoa, Julian, fancy, man. Big words. I don't even know if I'm going to spell it right. That's a sebaceous gland. And it produces something called
Sebum.
sebum.
Well, look at the smart
guys.
Yeah, you got a nice group here. What is sebum?
Oil.
Oil. Oil and fat. So what happens is this gland produces a whole bunch of fat, and it goes out and up to spread throughout our skin. Why do we want this oil or this fat inside of it, on us?
Protection.
Yeah, it's a little bit acidic too. Why do we want a little layer of acid on us? Yeah, what does acid do? Corrodes things, right? So any kind of bacteria, virus lands on our skin, it's gonna melt away a little bit.
Unless you have dry skin, you're lacking that, right?
Yeah. And we'll talk about maybe what causes that. One of the most important things. So here's the deal. This produces all this oil, and it goes out through the hair. By the way, this is also true of the hair in our head as well. This goes out and spreads out here, and it makes our skin also waterproof. So we should be a little waterproof as well. Okay? And then we have this blue layer. So this is what the epidermis is made of. What layer is this? This is the dermis. What's inside of here? I'll give you a hint. A lot of people, when I tell them about
vascular
skin,
system.
what's that?
The vascular.
The vascular system, the nervous system, but there's some pretty important proteins you have in here. The most abundant protein in your body is here. And it's what people always ask about when we talk about skin.
Oh, collagen.
Collagen. Collagen and elastin. So this blue stuff is collagen. Then you also have elastin. What does collagen do?
Elasticity.
So that's elastin. Elastin is the protein that allows me to stretch it and have it snap back into place. Also in the dermis. What's the collagen then for?
Lumps.
Yeah, think about collagen and what collagen feels like. It's kind of popular now in today's culture, right? It's a support structure.
Yeah, all these people are selling collagen this, collagen that. Is it worth it?
1, 2, 3.
In my opinion, no, it's not. And there are some side effects of doing that too. Okay, it can affect like calcium absorptions and things like that as well. So the best way is to make it inside the body like it always does, but we should have healthy collagen levels there at all times.
So are you talking about topical? Like if you put topical collagen, it's not good for you?
You can eat it to take it.
It's always best if you do the principle is this, guys. If you make it yourself, it's always better. It's permanent. Your body knows how much it wants and when to do it. You start putting stuff on it, what does your body do with your natural stuff?
Suppresses it.
Use it or lose it kind of
Right.
thing. Yep. Go ahead,
But
Jerry.
So it's the support structure that like physically holds up like the shape of the skin, or?
Yep. Yep. It's just like a little jelly layer.
What about like taking it internally, like all these collagen?
Again, same
Protein,
thing.
right?
There's a lot of mixed results with it. Some people say yes, some people say no, but it's the same principle. You know, if you're taking in stuff that your body needs, which by the way needs a lot of vitamin C in order to make collagen, you need a lot of amino acids which you can get from anywhere. But if you're taking this stuff in and your body has the energy to produce it, it's gonna make it. So the big thing is this: we're told, and you can look up all these stuff you want about skin. Guess what they say causes collagen and elastin to break down? You guys maybe we can skip ahead. Never mind, I'm not going to say it yet. Hypodermis, what's in here? This is where you have fat cells and you have your white blood cells and things like that. Okay, so the 3 layers of skin. Any questions on that? None. Okay.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
when somebody's in a fire and they have first degree, second degree, third degree burns, is that what they're talking about?
I don't know. Does anyone know that?
Yeah, usually it's third degree. I think that's all the way down to the hypodermis.
Hypodermis? So yes. Answer is yes. Know it all, John. You can't stump me. So,
Kevin, back to sunbathing again. You just, from here up, you get the sun, or do you have to sunbathe to get the whole effects of it all?
you gotta wait. Let's wait till we get there.
Oh,
If I
okay.
don't answer it then get me. Okay?
Alright.
But yeah, there's a really good answer to that. Let's talk about skin cancer. We have more skin cancer today or less?
More.
More. We have more sunscreen today or less?
More.
Okay.
How about that?
So, here's the deal. We have more exposure to the sun today or less?
Less.
Way less.
Oh, way less.
We have way less exposure
so
to the sun
simple,
today. Then think about 100 years ago.
Oh, you mean like
It's all
right,
there.
it's inside.
Now here's the deal. There's way more than 3 types of skin cancer, but there's 3 main ones. What are the 3 types that you've heard of?
Basal cell.
So let's go here. Melanoma,
Basal cell.
basal cell,
Squeamish.
squamous cell. Pretty cool. Now you can see it, right? And see what layer they're talking about. What's going on. So what's a squamous cell carcinoma? They look at it, they see some abnormal skin, they look at it under a microscope, and they see this type of cell bundled together reproducing quickly. Okay, is it dangerous?
Yes.
Squamous cell?
Yeah.
Squamous cell and basal cell are both very slow growing.
Right. But
Okay? If left untreated for a very long time, sure. Okay, there's a chance that it can spread. By the way, which is the most popular one? The most abundant one, the most
Basal
basal.
cell.
Basal cell.
Basal cell, about 8 out of 10 skin cancers are basal cell. It's the least invasive, the least scary. It really doesn't spread. It's very rare for it to spread anywhere. It takes a very long time for it to grow. Okay?
My father's had that. They have to keep cutting, and then you come and they do under the microscope. Gotta go
So
back.
let me ask you, 100 years ago, was that the practice? No. So you have to start asking yourself. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying, is it maybe we're over cutting away some of this stuff or
Absolutely.
looking at some of this stuff?
Yeah.
Most of this stuff wouldn't harm us if we just grow. It just looks a little abnormal. And again, they want to be, precautious. Heaven forbid anything is ever a melanoma and they missed it. Okay? But we have to realize that most of this stuff, very slow growing. Did you guys know you can put apple cider vinegar on a lot of this stuff and it'll just eat it away? Okay?
That's good stuff.
So-
Yeah,
So-
it's probably the best way to do it.
But again, let's talk about this, right? What that means is that there's something happening here that's not helping this out. So What causes squamous cell cancer?
Lack of sun.
So, you guys are going to get a little confused in the beginning. Squamous cell and basal cell caused by, if I can spell, too much sun. Now let me clarify with that. It doesn't mean being out in the sun getting tan. It means, hey, I'm inside. Wow, I finally had the day off, let me go outside. Boom, let me get red. So UV radiation does mutate cells. So think about this. If I'm never in the sun, are these melanocytes producing melanin?
No.
Do I have any protection from this layer?
No.
So what happens when all of a sudden I hang out and get roasted in the sun?
Get burnt, and then you get more susceptible to
Is that natural? Is that the way we were built to be in nature?
No.
No. So there is truth. This is where, like, whoa, watch out for the sun comes from. By the way, if you don't have any of this melanin, also that sunlight's coming in, guess what it starts doing to the collagen and the elastin?
Burning
It
it.
starts to break it down and denature the protein. So what do people tell you about the sun? It causes wrinkles and aging and all this stuff. Is that true? Partially, but here's the part of the equation they're leaving out. Melanoma. Is it a scary cancer?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the most scary, one of the most aggressive cancers there is. It spreads very quickly. What causes melanoma?
Not enough sun.
Too little sun. Highest melanoma rates in the country. Yeah, in the continental, it's Minnesota. Usually it's Minnesota or a northern state. How about in the world?
Norway.
Scandinavian countries, all the northern countries. Lowest are always in places with lots of sun.
They're also very fair. You would think that they would like people in Scandinavian countries usually fair skin.
Well, here's
Dark
the deal.
chestnuts.
When you don't get enough sun, what's happening? You're not activating these cells, and they're not producing melanin. Okay, there's very little people who would argue this fact with it. There's a lot of research on this. Okay.
My sister died.
Yeah. So here's the deal. A lot of people, what they do is they don't use the sun properly. Now here's the deal. Like I went to Costa Rica. I stayed with people who are Costa Ricans, right? Yeah, it was fun, right? There's always one Costa Rican in the audience, you know? Guys, in Costa Rica, I'll tell you, the Costa Ricans there, they did not live inside. Inside was a place you just went to make food real quick, but you lived outside, right? Most other countries in the world, I would say probably 95% of countries, where do they live?
Inside.
Well, I'd say outside most countries,
Almost countries.
right?
Except for the USA.
Yeah, we are inside all the time. So when we're inside all of the time, then we finally go outside and we don't have this melanin, we get burned, and all this stuff breaks down. So we are taught, avoid the sun like the plague. Get out of the sun. And because of that, okay, we're reducing our chances maybe of squamous cell and basal cell. However, you still go to the dermatologist and find anything that's wrong, they're cutting it out anyway. These are not very dangerous. 8 out of 10 of them are basal cell. But what are we causing an increase of? Right? So here's the real answer is we should be getting sun every day. Right? Not that we're burning, but getting our base tan, getting our melanin up, melanin production. As it goes up, we need more and more sun. And then guess what? We get more and more protection to the collagen fibers. Okay? To the elastin, to the squamous cell, to the basal cell. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I hope that clarifies a lot, okay? Let's talk about some other issues. Anyone know what causes acne?
Oil.
Diet.
Or kissing.
So nobody really knows what causes it, but they do know this. This is your sebaceous gland producing oils, right? So think about oils and fats. It's one way your body can get triglycerides and fats and oils out of your system. So typically what happens is you have a lot of, let's say, oily foods. You have an overproduction of oil, it'll go up and it'll actually start to clog the follicle, and all this gunk will come up and whiteheads and all this other stuff and start to raise this up and inflame it. Okay? So there's a lot of testimonials. If you stop eating oily foods, fat foods, go plant-based, your skin clears up pretty quick. As soon as you start eating oils again and greasy foods or things with a lot of fat in it.
Hormones play a role too.
Yeah, yeah, hormones definitely will play a role, but again, they'll say that especially like for example with teenagers, they will stimulate these glands and cause it. But again, if we are really healthy, will we have a lot of this showing up? You know, even with hormone production and different hormones, like right? It's not like every teenager has a whole bunch of acne. Right? Is it your way of your body's actually really healthy, and if you're putting some stuff in it that's not completely healthy, it's a way for your body to detoxify. You have to realize we have to start looking at this different than the medical community looks at it. Remember, the medical community is very symptom based. So they're looking at something and saying, oh, you have acne, let's put something on it to get rid of it, versus, hey, what is the body literally trying to get out and squeeze out of itself and heal itself up? Yeah, Joey.
Would you say to get rid of acne, like one of the first steps would be to assess your diet?
I would say the first thing you should do is look at your nervous system.
Okay.
So I'm not just saying that.
Second thing, maybe?
You guys know, yes, diet for sure. Absolutely. Diet's extremely, extremely, extremely important, okay? Collagen and elastin, we kind of went into it, right? What is causing the destruction of this? Okay?
Toxins.
So number one is absolutely the sun coming in, not having the melanin there to protect you. But number two, these are proteins. So if you have, what denatures proteins? What breaks down proteins? Acids typically do. So that's why we have acid in our stomach. So what are some things that we put on us that are acidic? Yeah, sunscreens, lotions, all this stuff is going to come in. They're all chemical components going to seep into our skin and start denaturing these proteins as well. Right? So a lot of us put lotions and stuff like that on to make us look younger. It does it temporarily. Right? But long term, it actually denatures all these proteins and makes us look worse in the long run. Okay? How about dry skin? What causes dry skin? That would mean that this gland isn't working well. So, I'll give you an example. I used to do this with my hair. I used to hate my hair. I mean, I like it now, but I don't have much of it. But, you know, I have really big curly hair, right? I used to hate it as a kid because it would get super frizzy and weird. I'm like, what the heck is this, right? It's annoying, right? So, eventually I read about don't shampoo your hair.
Right.
Right? Because what's happening when I'm shampooing my hair?
Taking all the oils out.
Yeah, you're taking all your oils and you're slushing them away from you and getting them off of you. Right? So anytime it's the use it or lose it principle. Anytime you start putting stuff on your skin to mimic this stuff, your body is sensing that. Your skin is a nervous system. So if I put a whole bunch of oil on my skin, what's my skin saying to my nervous system now?
Not enough oil.
Well, if I'm putting it on there, my skin is saying, oh, I already have oil there, I don't need any more. So what's my gland do?
Shuts down.
Shuts down. And then all of a sudden you look at your skin and it's like, wow, it's pretty dry. What do I need to do? I need to put more lotion on. And it continues over and over and over again.
So you think it's better not to put anything on it?
What's better than the oil that was created inside of you?
I put coconut oil on my skin all the time, so you're saying that's not a good idea?
I'm saying it's better. This oil inside of you is even better.
But
Yeah.
if the result is dry skin, then, you know, you want to do
Would it be? It's going to be temporarily until your body says, whoa, my skin is dry, I need to start working these glands again.
Ah.
Or whether it's cracky, like, you know, when you get on your feet,
Yeah.
you get real cracky, so it's like,
So you wait and you keep doing this. The more lotion you put on it, the more it's going to be like that. You have to go through a healing process. Yeah.
I know for me, like hydration, you know, I run around dehydrated too often.
Right.
So that plays a role.
Yeah.
in my skin.
Right. Okay. And then moles and freckles. Anyone know what those are?
Sun kisses.
Sun kisses. I like it. So think of a mole, kind of like melanoma, but not cancerous, not dangerous. Is what happens is instead of it being distributed, all of a sudden you start to get some melanocytes next to each other, and they start producing it in concentrated volumes, and it'll raise up through the skin. And that's what a mole is, or
what
a
if it
freckle.
loses its pigment?
What's that?
What happens if it loses pigment?
If what loses pigment? The
A mole.
skin?
A mole.
I don't know.
What is it that builds up?
The melanin. So it's like a pocket of melanin. So just like a tan, but really concentrated into one area that raises above the skin. And we can continue to have these up into, throughout our life and grow new ones as well. And that's why you want to check, like have you check your moles to see if they're going to turn into melanoma.
So what causes that besides obviously melanoma?
No one really knows, honestly. No one has a clue as to what's causing that. Yeah.
Does that go for skin tags too? Is it the same?
I don't really know what a skin tag is, honestly. We can look it up. A lot of this stuff, when you look it up, people are like, we have no clue what it is.
Because I got some after I gave birth.
Right? Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And same with, what else was I going to say?
Warts.
Well, warts are actually little pockets sometimes of viruses and things like that your body's containing, right? Do you guys know you can take a wart, most of the time it's not dangerous, your body's just containing it. It won't do anything to it. But if you do a little, like if you burn it or do something like that, it'll trigger your body to say, I have to heal this burn anyway, I might as well get rid of this anyway. So that's how your body works. But a lot of times they're not dangerous, it's your body actually containing a pocket of something and just leaving it there. Okay? So, let's get into this. How do we have healthy skin for life? What's the best thing that we can do?
Nothing. Sounds like.
So I don't know if you guys know this. Like when I met Brooke, she worked at an organic skin place, right? And she came up to me and she was like, "Yo, your skin's awesome. I want you guys to look at my skin. I don't know how good it is. I don't know. I've never had anything." She's like, "You must get facials done all the time." And I'm like, "What the heck's a facial? Like, what are you talking about?" And she went into it and. Brooke started care with me and stopped all of her skin routines for a while and went back to her esthetician like 3 months later and she was like, "Yo, who the heck have you been going to? Like your skin looks unbelievable. What are you doing?" And she said, "Actually, I've done nothing." Right? Because what is your skin related to? Your nervous system. So as you get a healthy nervous system, what happens to your skin?
Becomes healthy.
Yeah, your skin is a reflection of your overall health. If your skin looks beautiful, guess what your overall health is? Beautiful, right? So, nerves are number 2 on the list. Getting a healthy nervous system is that important to your skin. It's a really good reflection of what your nerves are doing, okay? Well, let's talk about blood flow. I think blood flow is actually probably the most important thing that you can do to get this going. So, blood flow. What would cause us to have less blood flow to the skin?
Sedentary lifestyle.
So sedentary lifestyle for sure. How about smoking? What does smoking do?
Constricts your blood vessels.
Anyone see somebody who smokes a lot? What happens? How many wrinkles do they form? Right? So here's the deal. You guys remember I talked about the nervous system. It does go back to the nervous system. When we talk about the fight or flight system versus the rest and digest system. Okay, what's the fight or flight system there for?
Protection.
Right? So if you see something that scares you, if you're stressed out, what happens?
Run away.
Yeah, so what your body does naturally is when you get scared or when you're stressed out, it takes all of the blood away from your skin and away from your organs and puts it into your muscles. Right? When you get scared, what happens to your hands? They get warmer or colder? They get really cold, right? So typically you get cold and clammy.
Got that right.
All your blood goes to your muscles so you can run or fight something. So, here's the deal. Number 1, if you have a subluxation, right? I hope I don't mind if I just use it as an example.
Okay.
The nerves in your lower neck
Right.
were turned off. Nerves that go to your hand. They were actually activated like you were stressed out in that area. So what happens to your blood flow? All the blood gets diverted away from here and goes lower into your muscles. So all of a sudden your skin here isn't getting blood flow. You open up the nervous system, rushes blood back into this area, things start to heal up and rise up and come out. Make sense?
That was crazy. It's like amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. So here's the deal. As your nervous system gets calm, more blood flow goes to the skin. But what else? You have smoking, you have a subluxation that reduces blood flow. And what's the big thing here? Stress. If we're stressed out all the time, your blood is getting diverted away from the skin and going to your muscles. So anybody here live like a stressful life or stressed out a lot? Right?
Yeah.
Kills your skin. Literally kills your skin. Do you guys see why that happens? So if you live in a stressful life, if you don't take time for yourself, get outside, get in nature, get relaxed, you're not going to get this blood flow or this hydration to your skin. Okay, sun. Should we have sun?
Yes.
So, Rick, your question.
What do you do? Sunbathe for 20 minutes a day, or just having it on your face?
So, all the research shows the opposite of what everyone says. The best time to get sun is 12 o'clock, in the middle of the day. And you need it, the best time, because you need the sun the least amount of time.
How do you get it?
So here's the
just
deal.
in the face, or just in the arm?
80%, you want 80% of your body exposed.
Wow.
You told us that at
You
your
guys
birthday
can
party.
Everybody
Sorry.
birthday suits.
Could have been a way more fun party, huh?
That's why he integrated it into this.
That is what it turned
Just
into
a
later
little
on,
too late, huh?
right?
Yeah.
There's no sun out there.
Okay.
What's
So 80% of your body exposed, and you want to be in the sun for most people about 20 minutes a day. If you have darker skin, you want to extend that. If you have lighter skin, less. In the beginning, if you're not used to getting sun, be careful with it. You don't want to get to the point of burn.
What's the indication of being in the sun and it doesn't do anything? You can be sitting here all day almost. It doesn't tan, it doesn't get red.
Oh, interesting. Is that your experience?
No, it's not my experience, but I know somebody that does that. Their legs can be laying on their stomach. Their legs don't even get tan whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you get blood?
He's like, I know someone. I have this friend. That's awesome.
No sun.
They stay white.
Yeah.
They stay white.
English blood, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's
Like
why.
Some of
something
the weirdest
interesting
questions. I
about
don't know this stuff, guys.
It's like I don't remember where I read it, but like I like experienced it too after I read it. Like I realized like okay, I swam for a long time, and like yeah, when you're in the sun, it's like magnifying on you. But it's like when we did like warm ups and stuff, like that's when I really got my tan. So like around like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the afternoon,
Right.
and it's like that. Like I feel like when you're moving around in the sun, you're like moving that, you're getting like that blood flow. And
Right?
it's like, could that have like an effect on how tan
It
you
may,
get?
man. It absolutely may. Here's the answer. No one knows. That's my always answer.
Yeah, no one knows.
What about the age spots, like those spots?
So again, no one knows what causes age spots inside of somebody. It's a phenomenon no one knows. But again, if you think about it this way, this is the way I like to look at it. Your skin is a reflection of your health, right? And most people have toxicity that builds up inside of them over time. And your body, by the way, your skin, even though it's really important, there are some things that are even more important inside of you because you die without it. So the less energy you have, the more this is going to denature inside of you. And the more you're going to have little spots show up and things are going to be a little dysfunctional inside. Yeah, Sean.
You can't get 20 minutes of sun a day, and like on the weekends, is it better to get longer extended periods of time to make up for that?
As long as you don't burn. Pretty much this way, you want to get as much sun as possible as long as you don't burn. Always. Right? We're designed to be in the sun. Okay? So yes, like if you already have a little bit of a base tan in the week, you can't do it. The weekend, live with the sun, have some fun. Okay. Diet. How important is diet? Extremely, extremely, extremely important. If you want a healthy skin, how many people have noticed this? As soon as you change your diet, you do a fast, you do a juice cleanse. What happens to your skin? Glows, right? Your skin regenerates very quickly. So if you start to get healthier, you'll notice it in your skin right away. And vice versa. You start to eat bad, guess where you notice it? You can't fool it. Okay? And then finally, do not use, which should you not put on your skin?
Sunscreen. Anything.
Pretty much anything. Including soaps. Again, I use soap every day. I'm a little sneaky, but should I be using soap every day? Probably not. When you use soap, what are you taking away? All the oil, all your natural protection. Okay? Even if it is organic or not, right? It's not a natural thing we should be putting on us.
So why do they sell, it's like annoying. All this like, get the sunscreen, get the sunscreen, get the sunscreen.
That's a
To create cancer.
big money.
Marketing.
Again, it's like if we just take a step back from it and just look at it. We use more sunscreen than ever before. We have more skin cancer than ever before. And again, it's not like great science, but just take a step back and look at it and say, wow, if this was the case, the places using the most sunscreen have the most amount of skin cancer. That's not true at all.
Well,
Okay.
people go out at the wrong time of day and they stay out there for hours. And they take their kids out there, and that's.
Yeah.
I mean.
We live in this kind of dichotomy of like indoor all the time, and then a little bit outdoor versus spreading it out and being outdoor most of the time. Okay. Yeah, Joey.
Would you say that like eventually over time building up like a tan that you can spend more time in the sun?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like if you're
The more, Joey, the more tan you have, the more you have to be in the sun. The more you should be in the sun.
what I'm saying is like your protection against the sun in the term, like in the case of like instead of sunscreen, you just like build that tan up. Like you're in the sun like 20 minutes every day for like a month or two.
Yeah.
And eventually you realize, okay, I'm pretty tan. You go in the sun, you're in there, you're out for like 5 hours. You don't get sunburn.
Yeah.
Or like you get like a little sunburn versus like completely red.
Oh, you don't get sunburn. That's the whole point of these cells. You have your own natural sunscreen. So I want you guys to think about it this way. Your melanocytes are your own natural sunscreen, but we don't use it anymore. We use artificial stuff. Your sebaceous glands are your natural lotions and oils, but we don't use it anymore. We use lotions and oils instead of it. Make sense? This is our whole life. We're not using what God gave us. We're just putting all this artificial stuff on us. What do you think is better for us? The stuff that our body creates itself and knows how to use versus all the fake stuff. Now, I know before in the past we start talking about this, let's talk about makeup. How toxic is makeup?
Very.
How much does it block all these pores? Which is getting out all the junk outside of you. Okay? So, Rick, no more makeup.
I will wear it at night or something.
Love it.
The only part time. Not on Saturday and Sunday.
Fair enough, man.
What about just washing your face with water? Would you say that's not as good?
So again, even with that, like you don't want to bathe too much. You know, and there's a big thing with that as well. So
I did shower.
Again, it's like I know we live in this culture now, but it's one of those things where the more you put, remember this stuff is to repel water on us. So you get in the habit of taking too many. By the way, guys, when you take like a warm shower, what's happening to your blood vessels? You're dilating them, but then all of a sudden, when you're out, what happens to them? They shrink up. So we shouldn't be taking too many hot showers. Now I do that all the time. I take hot showers. I'll have a little dress. Cold showers from now. I need more
So
cold
you're
showers.
saying-
Say that.
I burn. Yeah.
Wait till the next hurricane for a cold shower.
Right, Kevin?
Yeah,
We're not
yeah.
doing hot and cold. Hot, cold, you know.
Again, for different reasons, really good for growth hormone purposes. As far as your skin health, probably not so good. You know, less water the better on you as far as your skin health. Really, it is. Any other questions?
So when you're taking
What
a
about,
sauna,
like, on the collagen, for people that bruise real easy, I mean, as people get older, they seem to bruise easier. Is that for losing of the collagen?
Yeah, so they're losing their support system in there, absolutely. And again, it's one of these things that I hate when we say this because we're taught this, and it's partially true, but it's not. They say it's aging that causes this. If you look this up, they say that what causes collagen to collapse and elastin to collapse is aging. But what is aging? It's just, okay, we're sick longer period of time, so these are denaturing more, you know? So, yes, John, my guess is that's probably what's happening. You're losing that cushion, and also this barrier right here, the basal cells actually get thinner and thinner the more all this stuff gets denatured. So think about it this way, the more toxicity that builds up in our body, the more it goes into our blood system, our lymphatic system, the more it hangs out in this area, the more everything starts to break down as a result of that. And you get the sagging, the wrinkles, all the fun stuff.
What about cellulite?
I don't know much about what's causing the cellulite.
That's for fascia.
The fascial blaster is the answer, though. I know
Right.
that.
when you're talking about hot showers and when you're in a sauna and you're sweating, I mean,
Yeah, so temporarily, and then when you get out, typically everything will close up again,
well,
too.
yeah.
I love saunas.
Yeah.
So
And
I
again,
get sunburned so fast when I go outside. Like
so I would start really short,
Uh-huh.
and then once you start getting a little bit darker, you go out a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And again, if you're very fair-skinned, you don't need much sun.
Right.
You really don't. You need like 10, 15 minutes in the middle of the day and you're done.
But what if you can't get it in the middle of the day? You know, I mean, people
Then you gotta do the best you can. There are some studies that say at nighttime is the worst. like before, when there's no sun, it's the worst time
Yeah.
to get sun. Look really smart, you know. The moon burn, yeah. No, but like later on, the worst. So I would say probably just go in the morning then if you can. Go ahead, Sean. Oh, you guys, come on.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kevin. Happy birthday to you.
Make a wish.
Guys, any questions or anything? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen.
Happy birthday, Kevin.